What's up, guys? Jay here from Tap and Turn Gaming, coming at you today with a legend review of the upcoming Eldritch Moon set that's coming out this Friday. So hopefully you guys are watching this before the set comes out, but it is coming out very soon this week. So I'm going to do a little review of the legendary creatures in the set, because we're all about EDH Commander. And we always like to see new legendary creatures and what kind of brews that we could come up with for these new legendary creatures. So we're gonna take a look at the legends in the set, and I'm just gonna give you my thoughts on them and kind of review them, I guess you could say, because it's a legend review. So we're gonna start off here with, and we'll probably have like little overlays somewhere on the screen of the card. But first up is Talia Heretic. She's a 3-cost 3/2 legendary human soldier with first strike, and she makes it so that creatures and non-basic lands your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. So that alone is a pretty back-breaking ability. The fact that your opponent's creatures come into play tapped, but also their non-basic lands, and let's face it, in Commander, your opponents are probably going to be playing non-basic lands in their deck. So the fact that she slows your opponent down is really nice. She's very similar to Loxodon Gatekeeper. He more or less does the same thing, except he also does all their lands and all their artifacts as well. So he does artifacts, creatures, and lands. She just does non-basics and their creatures, but it's still a really good ability. Plus, she costs less. She only costs 3, and she's a 3/2 with first strike. So that alone, if you're into like tiny leaders, she would make a pretty phenomenal tiny leader, if you ask me. As far as straight up EDH. I would probably play her in the 99 of a deck, probably not in the Commander slot per se, but that's just me personally. I definitely would want a copy of this for my Tribal Soldier deck led by Darian. So I probably am going to want to pick up a copy of her for that. But as far as being a general of a deck, I personally probably wouldn't put her in the general slot. I would probably put her in the 99 of a deck. But she's still a really amazing card. I know we don't play standard or modern, but I can definitely see her seeing play in standard and or modern for sure. So the next card we have is Gisela and Geralf. They're a 4-cost, 2 a blue and a black for a 4/4 legendary human wizard. And when Gisela and Geralf enters the battlefield, put the top 4 cards of your library into your graveyard. So that right there is pretty cool. If you're playing a deck that wants to manipulate the graveyard and get stuff in there to maybe reanimate it later on, this card just off of that is pretty good. But what makes this card really nice, it says during each of your turns you may cast a zombie creature card from your graveyard. So it definitely screams build tribal zombies around me, and I've already started brewing a tribal zombie deck built around this card. I do already have a Ghoul Caller Gisela deck right now, the mono black version, but I think I may try to tweak it and maybe put this in the general slot and just play Gisela by herself in the 99 of the deck. Because this ability where you can essentially it's like almost like Carrot or Ghost Chieftain, giving you the ability to cast one of your zombies out of your graveyard every turn is pretty amazing. And you're in 2 pretty good colors, blue and black, so black's got plenty of recursion, blue's got plenty of disruption, so it's already a good color combination. It's definitely build around me, definitely screams build zombie tribal around me, but I love tribal decks, so the card just kind of calls to me. Any card that, plays with a specific tribe just personally, just calls to me and makes me want to build something around it. But overall, it's definitely a pretty good card. You know, you get the graveyard interaction by being able to mill your top 4, and then maybe you mill your top 4 and you mill some zombies. Well, now you can cast them from your graveyard. So it's a pretty cool ability. I like it a lot. Next up we have Gisela the Broken Blade. She is a 4-cost via 2 and 2 white for a legendary Angel Horror. And she's a 4/3 with flying, first strike, and lifelink. So just off of that alone, you know, kind of makes me see it as like Baneslayer Angel 2.0. Pretty amazing stats for a 4-cost card. Just the fact that it flies, first strikes, and lifelinks, and it's a 4/3 for 4 is pretty damn amazing on its own. But also at the beginning of your end step, if you both own and control Gisela the Broken Blade and a creature named Bruna the Fading Light, exile them, then meld them into Brazella Voice of Nightmares. So as far as the melding goes, we'll get to that once we actually get to Bruna. And I'm just going to throw this out there, I absolutely despise the meld mechanic. I just can't stand it for some reason. I just don't like the idea of flipping 2 cards over and making them into one giant card. I just feel like it's silly, but you know, maybe some people enjoy it. I personally don't enjoy it. Pretty sure Derek doesn't really care for it either. So, but just looking at Gisela alone, without that whole meld crap, where you can meld her and Bruna together, she's a pretty phenomenal beater. I'll give her that. You know, like I said, very similar to Baneslayer Angel, a little less powerful in the power and toughness department, but you know, she's also cheaper to play, and she's an absolute beater, like hands down. She's a phenomenal beater. But I mean, that's really all I see in her. You know, if she had some sort of like really cool broken ability, maybe like an enter the battlefield effect or something like that. I mean, she does have the whole meld mechanic, but you have to have another card out on the board to even trigger that. So, you know, if you're playing her as your general, maybe you're playing Bruna in the same deck, well, now you, in order to activate that, you have to have one specific card out of your 99 other cards in your deck. And if you're playing her as your general, you're playing mono white, so you don't really have a lot of ways to tutor for creatures. So you would more or less kind of have to either just top deck Bruna or have ways to draw additional cards to maybe draw her into her. So from a standpoint of her being a general in a deck, I personally don't see it. I probably would not play her as a commander of a deck. Would I play her in the 99? Sure, I would absolutely play her in the 99 of a deck, because she's, you know, like I said, a really good beater for sure. You know, she first strikes, she flies, and she life links. So, you know, even if she gets blocked, she's going to gain you some life. And not many creatures are going to survive 4 first strike damage. I mean, there are some huge creatures out there that would, but you know, a lot of creatures that she'll get matched up with, she'll probably take out before they can even touch her. So I would play her in the 99, probably not play her as a general, personally. Next up, we have a pretty exciting card. I'm pretty excited about this card. It's Ishkana Graph Widow. It's a 5-cost, 3/5 legendary spider, so that's pretty exciting. It's the first ever legendary spider, if I'm not mistaken. So it's a 3/5 with reach, which is pretty cool, so it can block creatures with flying. And it has Delirium. So Delirium is if you have 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, Delirium will kick off. So what this card does, if you have Delirium, is when it enters the battlefield, if there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, put 3 1/2 green spider creature tokens with reach onto the battlefield. So if you have Delirium, she brings 3 1/2 spiders with her, which is pretty cool. And she also has the ability where you can pay 6 and a black and target opponent loses 1 life for each spider you control. So the reason why I'm pretty excited for this card is, like I said with Gisela and Geralf, I just love tribal theme stuff. So seeing this card just already has me brewing a tribal spider deck. Yeah, there's really not a lot of really phenomenal spider creature cards out there. I mean, there's a few that aren't terrible, but her secondary ability, excuse me, where you can drain your opponent for each spider you control, you know, kind of just drew me to it. You know, it's definitely built around me, and I just like cards like that. Cards that make you build around them and like tailor to a specific tribe just really get my gears going and make me want to start building a deck around it. But that aside, I mean, if you're Delirium, she brings 3 tokens with her, which is, you know, not terrible at all. So, you know, the way I'm kind of envisioning building a deck around her is like a lot of self-sacrifice stuff, like playing artifacts and enchantments that sacrifice themselves away to do something, whether it be, you know, mana ramp, or maybe kill a creature, or kill an artifact or an enchantment, things like that to fuel the Delirium so that when you do cast her, she'll more than likely bring those tokens with her. And just her on her own and the tokens, when you activate that ability, you're going to drain your opponent for 4 life. Draining them for 4 life in exchange for 7 mana, it is a little bit costly, but you're also in green, so you're obviously going to be playing some sort of mana ramp in some form or fashion, so it's not going to be difficult for you to get to 7 mana if you're playing green. And you know, you have things like Illusionist Bracers that let you copy activated abilities of creatures, and things like Rings of Bright Hearth. So you know, you have things like that at your disposal to basically copy that ability and drain your opponent for more. So, you know, and you're in black as well, because the ability on her has a black mana symbol on it, so technically she's a black and green general. So, you know, you can play, at least this is how I'm envisioning the deck, basically use the black as like a control element to, you know, kill their creatures and keep their creatures off the board, and then green, you know, obviously to ramp that mana. And most spider creature cards in Magic are going to be green, so you're obviously going to use the green to cast your other spider creatures and kind of just like form a wall with your spiders, because a lot of the spiders in Magic have you know, high toughness, low power but high toughness. So kind of just create a wall and just control the board and just slowly drain your opponent out with her abilities. So that's kind of how I envision it. So I'm pretty excited for this card. You know, let me know if you guys what you guys think of this card. I'm pretty excited for it. I think it's a pretty cool card. Also, another thing worth noting is right now this card is going for about $13 on TCG Player for their mid pricing. I know the set's not out yet. You know, this might just be hype pricing. It probably will drop, I'd imagine, after the set's released. But kind of makes me think that, you know, other people might be brewing stuff with this card, or maybe it'll see standard play, or maybe even play in other formats. So pretty exciting card, needless to say. Next up we have Ulrich of the Krallen Horde. He's a 5-cost via a red and a green and 3 for a 4/4 legendary human werewolf. So a lot of people's prayers are answered for a legendary werewolf, finally, so that we can finally build tribal werewolves, and I am one of those people. So that's pretty exciting on its own. We finally get a legendary werewolf to play around with. But his abilities are nothing to scoff at either. Whenever this creature enters the battlefield or transforms into Ulrich of the Krallen Horde, target creature gets +4/+4 until end of turn. So just by casting him, you give something a +4/+4. If he transforms into his other side and then transforms back into this, a creature gets +4/+4. And then obviously it has the claws like every other werewolf. At the beginning of each upkeep, if no spells were cast last turn, transform him. When he's transformed, he becomes a 6/6 called Ulrich, Uncontested Alpha. And whenever this creature transforms into Ulrich, Uncontested Alpha, you may have it fight target non-werewolf creature you don't control. So basically every time he transforms into his actual werewolf form, he's going to fight a non-werewolf creature that you don't control. So he's a 6/6. So a lot of things that he's going to fight is probably going to die. I would say probably 75% of the time. Maybe even more. 6 damage to the face is, pretty legitimate. Not a lot of creatures are going to survive that. So he's pretty cool. Not exactly how I envision the card. I kind of envisioned it maybe being something like, generating like 2/2 wolf tokens somehow. But, he's still pretty cool. I really like him, and I probably will at some point brew a deck around him. But yeah, it's just exciting when you see these legendary creatures and, it just tailors to a particular tribe. It just excites me and makes my gears start turning and, thinking of how to build around it. So that's Ulrich. Next up we have Bruna the Fading Light, so Gisela's counterpart for the whole garbage meld mechanic. But anyway, she's a 7 cost via 5 and 2 white for a 5/7 legendary angel horror, just like Gisela. And when you cast Bruna the Fading Light, you may return target angel or human creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So an ETB where you get to resurrect something out of your yard. Granted, it has to be one of 2 specific creature types, but one of them is humans, which is pretty common, honestly. No matter what kind of deck that you're playing, if you're playing white or green or black or red, it really doesn't matter. You're probably playing some humans in your deck. It's a very common creature type. And angels too, you could, I could maybe see this being played in like a tribal angel deck maybe. Probably wouldn't really fit well into a Talia deck because it's only on cast, not on when it enters the board. So it is very situational, but free resurrection is always nice. And she has flying and vigilance, so she's not bad. I feel like she's pretty overcosted for what she does, though. 7 mana. You are getting a pretty decent body with a 5/7 flyer with vigilance. So, I guess it's not terrible, but I feel like it probably would have been better off at like 6 mana. I know that's only one difference, but I feel like just for what she does, she's a little overcosted. But we'll talk about that meld mechanic. So basically, if you have her and Gisela on the board, Gisela says at the beginning of your end step, if you both own and control, so you can't steal somebody's Bruna the Fading Light and meld them into Brazella Voice of Nightmares. You actually have to control them and own them. So you have to play both of them in your deck and have both of them on the board at the same time in order to do that. So when they do meld, they become Bruna Voice of Nightmares. So essentially you exile them both, you flip them over, and you basically make them into one giant card, which just seems just silly to me. When it melds into Brazella Voice of Nightmares, that creature is a legendary Eldrazi angel that's a 9/10 with flying, first strike, vigilance, and lifelink. So yeah, that's pretty menacing, not gonna lie. And also your opponents can't cast spells with converted mana cost 3 or less. So it definitely, shuts down a lot of things that your opponent might want to cast. Just off the top of my head, 3 or less mana cost, that would shut down most green ramp spells, things like Eternal Witness, a lot of mana rocks like Soul Ring and Chromatic Lantern and things of that nature. I mean, the list is, will go on and on and on. Those are just things that I can think of off the top of my head. So don't get me wrong, if you have a Brazella Voice of Nightmares on the board, you're in good shape, but you have to have Bruna and Gisela on the board, and they have to be owned by you. They have to both be part of your deck. So especially in Commander, if either one of these creatures are your general, you're only in mono white, so it's not going to be a common occurrence for you to have both of them on the board at the same time. Maybe you're playing a multicolored deck, maybe you're playing black and white, or white and any other color combinations. I probably wouldn't try to cram both of these cards, Bruna and Gisela, into another deck led by a different general just to have the chance to meld it into Brazella Voice of Nightmares. So don't get me wrong, the two angels by themselves aren't terrible. I like Gisela a lot better than Bruna just because, she's cheap to play and she'll do work in combat and gain you some life. Bruna, like I said, I feel like she's a little overcosted for what she does. I mean, I like free resurrection, but free resurrection on 2 specific creature types, it may be situational sometimes. And you can play things like Karmic Guide and Revelark and stuff like that in white, where you can get free reses and probably be able to hit a wider variety of things than what Bruna would hit. So overall, I don't dislike the cards, but would I play either one of them as a general? Probably not. Would I play either one of them in the 99 of a deck? Maybe Gisela, probably not so much Bruna. And then lastly, we have the Mac Daddy of them all, Emrakul, the Promised End. So Emrakul is back. A lot of people speculated that he would be back in this set. Wizards was kind of hush-hush about a lot of stuff about this set, especially the set symbol, because if they gave away the set symbol, everybody would have known that Emrakul was in this set. But I feel like it's not a surprise to anybody that Emrakul's in this set. But anyways, Emrakul herself is a 13 cost, 13/13, and she is colorless, so you can play her in basically any deck. And she costs 1 less to cast for each card type among cards in your graveyard, so kind of like a nod to Delirium there. So if you have 5 card types among cards in your yard, she'll cost 5 less mana to play. But even so, even if you're not really getting that reduced mana cost, 13 mana is a lot of mana, don't get me wrong, but it's definitely not unheard of to generate, 13 colorless mana. You have things like Ashnod's Altar, which is a pretty nice combo piece, comboed with things like Nim Deathmantle and other creatures that you could generate infinite colorless mana with. I know Derek wants a copy of this for his Rasputin deck. That deck could just friggin' spit this guy out probably in a moment's notice. So, so it's not going to be overly difficult to cast it. So it does have that ability to lower its casting cost, which is nice. Also, when you cast Emrakul, you gain control of target opponent during that player's next turn. After that turn, that player takes an extra turn. And she also has Flying, Trample, and Protection from Instants. So essentially, any kind of instant speed spot removal, she is protected from. Not protected from sorceries. And things like, mass board wipes like Wrath of God and Damnation, those will just get her off the board, no problem. But, the main thing that's really cool about her is that she's essentially a Mindslaver on a 13/13 massive flyer. So that's definitely nothing to scoff at. And, you know, the fact that you get to do that, even though it says that after that turn where you control that player, they take an extra turn. I mean, let's face it, if you can't win the game by taking control of your opponent's turn, then you probably deserve to lose. So if you actually get to that point where that player gets to take an extra turn, you know, you're probably doing something not right. But even so, I mean, you could mess with your opponent so much that even during that additional turn, they might not be able to do much. I mean, it's very situational what they might have on the board, but it is definitely a very powerful effect. A Mindslaver on a body is no joke, and it's a 13/13 flying and trample, so that's also nothing to laugh at. And she's protected from basically all spot removal, so that's also pretty damn good. Would I play this card as a general? Probably not. Just because you're restricted so much by her being colorless, so you can only play colorless cards in your deck. You know, colorless generals are not unheard of. You know, you have things like Karn Silver Golem and things like that. I mean, he's the only one that really comes to mind off the top of my head, but would I play this as a general? Probably not, just because I want to actually have access to color combinations. Would I play this in the 99 of a deck? Probably. I mean, it's, you know, it's no joke. It's a 13/13 flyer with trample and can't be hit by spot removal, and it Mindslavers. So, I mean, those are just all really good things tacked onto this card. So would I play it the 99 of a deck? Probably. Depends on the deck. You know, if I felt like it would fit into the deck, I probably would try to cram it in. But overall, it's a pretty amazing card that, you know, once you get it on the board, you know, your opponent's definitely going to have to figure out a way to deal with it if they even last that long, because you're going to control their next turn when you cast it. So, and that is worth noting, it's on cast, not on enter the board. So you do actually physically have to cast her to get that effect. But that about wraps up all the legends from the set. So we had Emrakul, Bruna, Ulrich, Ishkana, Gisela, Gisela and Geralf, and Thalia. So those are all the legendary creatures in the upcoming set Eldritch Moon. So those are more or less my thoughts on them and how I feel about them. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. If there are any of these legends that you're looking to build a deck around, you know, let me know in the comment section below. I'd like to hear your, you know, your suggestions and thoughts on some of these cards. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that thumbs up button. It does help out a lot for other people to find the content on our channel. The more you thumbs up the videos if you enjoyed it. And if you're not already subscribed to our channel, Tap and Turn Gaming, please crush that subscribe button. We really do appreciate it. But anyways, this has been Jay with Tap and Turn Gaming with our legend review from Eldritch Moon. Again, hope everybody enjoyed the video. Thanks a lot for watching, and goodbye.